20-minute video on PoE 2 being bad. Ooh.
Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my review of the Path of Exile 2 Early Access. Now, this is an early access that I very much enjoy, and I want to see improve. This video is not necessarily meant to be like PoE 2 bad or PoE 2 good or one way or another. This is just about my objective,
I'm not watching the whole thing.
Subjective criticisms of the game and things that I hope they improve or change their mind on. I'm going to be emphasizing specifically design decisions. These are things I have issues with, and I'm hoping I can convince you and maybe eventually the GG devs that they should change their mind on some of these things. I'm not talking about balance issues, like for example, Archmage being mandatory in spell builds, or Hand of Wisdom in action being in every single attack build. This isn't really a design decision, that's more of a balance issue, and that's something that's going to be changed and fixed as they add more content, as they do balance patches. I'm not worried about that stuff necessarily. And this is not a comprehensive, all-inclusive list. This is just primary thoughts that came to mind when thinking about this video I'm making. Now, what do I like? It's the obvious stuff. I really love the boss fights. They're incredible. The visuals, the uncut gem system, and pretty much every system they yoinked 1-for-1 from PoE. If it worked in PoE and they yoinked it 1-for-1, I probably liked it.
The fundamentals.
I liked PoE 1 to begin with. Now, as for things that I am not convinced of, and the meat of this video, and probably the biggest one of them all, is the crafting system. For me, Path of Exile 1's crafting was something no other ARPG had. It was incredible, it was magnificent, and I am just simply not convinced by the current PoE 2's system. And I'll go through a bit of your options if you want to craft in PoE 1.
Wait. We understand it though, right? Because they've got the fundamental baseline system, and like all the league mechanics that will add more advanced crafting. It's not in the game yet, right? So, I mean, like this whole video is just like, I mean,
and my issues with them. Now, option 1 is you pick up an item off the ground and you identify it. This is the identification scroll lottery, basically. And simply, if it has 4 mods, 5 mods, whatever it is, you're just going to Exalt Slam it. I don't really view this as crafting. This is pretty much just, did you drop a good item or not? I don't really feel like this gives you any real satisfaction like PoE 1 did in terms of crafting an item.
It's an item that has a chance to pop off. You have to be able to realize, does the item have potential to pop off or not pop off? And then you gamble on that item. Like, do you invest in the item? Like, if you just slam shit items, well, then you're retarded, right? You slam items that have good initial stats. Like, you get an item with 2 really good mods and it could be good. So it's just, there is a strategy there, right? You have to identify an item that is at least has a chance of being good. Which is like, combinators were so cool because of the fact that you would get items that had like very good aspects, but they were kind of broken in other ways and you could kind of slam them together. PoE 2 could do like some good shit with combinators.
And you could fight me on this, but I'm sorry, the item you picked up and ID'd, you did not craft, you just found a good item on the ground. In PoE 1, if I found a good item on the ground and ID'd it, I would never have said I crafted a good item. I would just be like, holy crap, look at this cool rare I found. I wouldn't be saying I crafted it. Number 2, you have a good item with a couple bad stats, and then your option is basically a Chaos Orb, or technically you could annul Exalt, but this is the same outcome regardless. If you successfully annul the mod, you're going to Exalt it. There's no other
option. Does he know, bro? Does he know? It's gambling, bro. This is PoE. This is Path of Exile, bro. This is the whole game is gambling, bro.
Option. And the thing is, for me, this is just gambling. This doesn't really feel like crafting. It might feel good sometimes.
Looking for speedrun SF, you have items with good bad stats, survival orbs, high stakes gambling, incredibly deterministic. Okay, yeah. All right, essences, pick basis. Yep. Okay, I agree. Yep. I think all this just gets fixed with time. So, okay, we'll continue to the next part. Continue to the next part of this video. I think this entire section here just gets fixed by when they add in more systems. They just add more systems in, which they said they're going to do that. Right now, we have the baseline crafting experience. They're going to add more systems in that are going to get basically augment the way you craft. And there'll be more determinism and more determinism. Like, specifically, Jonathan said, there's going to be more determinism. Oh, was it Mark? Mark or Jonathan? I can't remember. In one of the interviews recently, he said, yes, with each fucking patch that comes out, there's going to be slightly more and more determinism. They obviously are on the side of RNG, which is ultimately because that creates the most replayability and fun. But right now it is turbo RNG because we don't have all those, we don't have a way of, like, even on SSF, I complained about it. For sure. It feels bullshit. I want to, like, I'm in the game and I have, like, a fucking expert war pick base and I have, like, a bunch of currency and I'm like, I want to invest a bunch of currency and make a good item, but I can't, right? Because there's not enough determinism in terms of, like, giving me a good chance at getting a good item. You just, either you get one or you don't. Right, which is a problem. But they've addressed that. Well, they've addressed they're going to add that in over time, which makes sense. get the fundamentals correct and then add it over time. The baseline is correct.
Next up, the other design decision I'm not convinced about is no life on the tree. Now, originally this was suggested that life nodes are mandatory, and if they're mandatory, we don't want them on the tree. Like, for example, GGG has a big problem with things that feel like they're mandatory, thus there's no choice there, thus it's something that shouldn't exist, is the line of thinking.
Yo, excuse me, what about the energy shield nodes and the fuck, like, I mean, dude, the energy shield nodes on the tree? Fucking GGG, huh? Huh? How the fuck you gonna have fucking Giga ES nodes and no life nodes? You fucking bozos? The fuck is this bullshit? I totally agree, by the way. Well, not necessarily life, but effective hit points nodes. I'm like, man, my damage is fine. My damage is great. It's cracked. I want to stop my character from getting one-shot by a hyena. I want to put points into, like, some survivability. I can't do that. My character gets one-shot by a hyena. I'm fucking people raging. Like, legitimately don't want any, like, do you know what I'm saying? Because it feels like, okay, what's the most efficient damage nodes? You just take those. It's not really like, oh, I'm going to make my guy Giga Tank his hit DPS. You can't do that. There's no choice there.
But I would argue, currently, after playing the system, I'm not necessarily convinced. For one, were life nodes mandatory to begin with, and thus limiting your decision how you make your build? I don't think they were mandatory. I think there is a large array of how you could choose to build your character, and there were people that made builds with 0% life on them. I might personally think that those were bad builds. I might think the 2k life rangers were just waiting to die, and that's an unfun playstyle or whatever, but people chose to do it. And there are reasons, for example, making a glass cannon specifically for doing something like a no-hit run. There are reasons why you would do that, and thus there is a choice. And there's also the people that would invest way more than other builds would invest, 200+% versus a build that would invest like maybe
fucking
100%.
LKZX, like 280% life builds, bro, using some fucking skill with like 2 damage nodes, but it still does infinite damage.
Where they're just super going into it. And that is a
disgusting
decision you make while making your character. And I still think it is one I value, because I don't look at it as limiting your defensive option. I look at it as it gives life characters the option of, am I scaling my raw EHP, like your life number, versus do I scale mitigation, versus do I scale more damage? And I think that is a valuable choice. What ends up happening when you don't give life on the tree is you just don't have that option to scale your EHP.
I see why they want to do it, though. You know why GGG wants to push this so hard, right? It's because of the fact that there was such a large variation between, like, you know, you have a build, right? Okay, normal build, you had like a 2k life fucking ranger. You've got like a fucking guy who's like a 1 HP delver. And then you've got a guy with 90% PDR with fucking 85% all res. You know, over here, and then you got a guy over here who's fucking actually using some headhunter bullshit, like whatever. Basically, what was happening is there was a massive difference between like the squishiest builds and the tankiest builds. And what GG want to do is they want to get it, they want to get this shit, and they want to say, okay, this is ridiculous, it's impossible to balance. They just want to squish it down. They're trying to squish this down, and then when they do this, they squish the big one down, right? Because they literally just aren't unable to scale their life that high. Right? And then they just bring the baseline up by giving everyone baseline life. And that means and that means they can balance their game around these kind of values. Right? Although, currently it's like this. Currently ES and PoE2 just says, hey, by the way, ES is on the tree and it's really fucking good. And then, you know what? They're like, oh, Grim Feast is also in the game. So, yeah, so then we just get this one here that's like way better than everything. And then, Grim Feast is up, so we double up. Right? Which is fucking stupid. And it's like question mark.
And your option is, do I scale just more of some mitigation layers, or do I scale damage? And that's just, to me, that's one less vector of choice. And currently, I'm not convinced at all that it was the correct one to get rid of life nodes. There's also the balance issue.
I don't need life nodes. I'm okay with just EHP nodes. I'm okay with the EHP nodes. I'm okay with a node that just straight up gives you like it could be fucking, they could just slightly change the way ammo works, like PDR nodes. Like other nodes like that, which could just be, you know, just EHP nodes. Like if they don't want to have ridiculous life values or whatever, and they just want to go for DR, fair enough, whatever.
Percent,
but it's all the same thing. I'm okay with the EHP nodes, whatever.
There's way too much of it on the tree, and it makes it so much more glaringly obvious of like, do you ever choose life builds? No, you don't. You just click ES and you grab the ES nodes, and your character's just way tankier because there's just so much raw amounts of it in comparison. But that is a That's
Make strength give 3 instead of 2. Strength is a decision. Yeah, but then it just makes strength stacking builds all super OP because like the build that stacks strength that also gets damage from it, which also gets life from it. It's like, I mean, you'd have to rebalance all the strength uniques. I'm not necessarily convinced because I remember I did that. I was doing the Scion strength wheel, right? I wasn't even a strength stacking build, yet I was stacking strength just because it was the only way I could get like raw EHP into my character to hopefully make him survive. And then he didn't survive anyway, so.
More of a balance issue. The design issue,
Yeah.
I believe, is the choice of no life on the tree,
Fuck
and
Fortify
I'm not
support,
convinced
bro.
by it after having played it. Next up, I have gem levels on items. They chose to give gem levels of +3, +5, +2. I think this is just way too much of a pass-fail check. It's a matter of, is this item even usable, in my opinion? And
Fucking spellcooks, bro. Fucking spellcooks.
I don't necessarily like it because there are a lot of times where you'd have an item that you could consider good because it has a lot of nice stats on it, but because it doesn't have the plus level stat, you cannot even consider it because so much of the value is tied to these stats. An example I'll give is if you go to PoE trade, and this is I took my weighted sum and I made it a 1500 value weight. This is an example of taking mods you care about and assigning a value. I'm not perfect. I'm not a machine. There's probably a better way to attribute value, but I valued plus levels at 150 value per stat, which means
This is how I buy Abby's gear with weights. This is the way to search are OP. It's where you get all the bargains. It's where all the bargains are at, bro.
+5.
Although I didn't have this many mods. I just had res life, and like PDPS crit. You know
One
what
would
I'm
be
saying?
worth
Like,
750
goddamn.
value. And this is how valuable I put all the other stats. Now, if we're specifically looking for +5 wands that have at least 1500 value, and we search this specific stat, we're looking at wands that half of their total value, half of their total worth in terms of my weighting system is tied to one of their 6 total stats. They have all the spell damage. They have
Source, I made it the fuck up. But no, wait, let's see it. Okay, let's see it. So is he getting 22% as far as, like, let's see it. So one gem level is probably worth about 10% more per, but they multiply with each other, right? So it compounds. Doesn't it? So wait, let's see it. What is it? So 5 to spells is like, it's basically 1 times 1.1. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's like 61% more damage. This is like 61% more damage. Although it does fucking make your mana cost more and shit. And couldn't you apply the same logic to say like, well, boots are bad because boots, you always have to have movement speed on your boots? I guess it depends. If it kills every unique in the game because the plus levels are too strong, then I could see that being an issue. But then they just need to buff the uniques, right? And like, yeah, fizz DPS on weapons. I don't know, man. I don't know about this argument. It's a slippery slope. It just brought a lot of question marks. It's saying like remove all good mods from items because good mods too good. And just that just means all mods mean nothing because they're all effectively homogenized at that point because, you know, you want there's a standout. What I'm saying is like movement speed is so strong that you should just be mandatory, right? On boots. I must admit I like plus gem levels. Now, I'm not a caster hack though, so I mean I read this as 61% more damage to my attack or to my ability, which is like that's a very, very strong attribute. But then I look at this one here and I think of this one being around 20% more damage. And you know, depending on your build, I don't know. That's what it reads as. This one says 61% more damage and your shit costs more mana. It's like 200% more. I'm looking in the terms of a melee skill, to be honest. I have not looked at unless spell damage scaling goes up exponentially. Let's have a look at Spark, guys. At that point, are we not saying that? Isn't it just simply the gems scaling's fault? I mean, if what you're saying is true. What am I looking at right now? Level 20 versus 25. Okay, 100, 100. Yeah, so it's clearly got a better scaling value, hasn't it? Clearly. So the mass here, doing the mass here, doing the mass here. So it's 77% more damage. It's 77% more damage instead of 61 for 5. So plus 5. That's 12% damage per point. So I was treating it as 10% damage per point. Okay, so it's 12. Spark is just 12% more damage per point. So attacks, like for example, my attacks were about 10% more damage per point. Spark is about 12% more damage per point. So yeah, so it's just it's 70% more damage for 5. So yeah, for attacks, you can think of 10%, for spells, 12%. But then you've got certain thresholds for spells. Certain spells are going to hit something. But I don't know, this is kind of like a, is this gem level on items problem, or is this spell scaling problems?
Speed. They have all these other stats, and half of the power of this wand, I believe, is literally this one stat. It is a pass-fail check. Do you have this stat or not? And I'm not necessarily a big fan of having that much power attributed to one singular stat, because it just
Simply reduce the amount of damage you get per gem level. Don't even need to change the mod on the wand. And on top of that, I don't necessarily agree with this. At this point here, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's a problem. I think having a fucking super OP roll that can roll an item, just like, that's like saying, like, literally plus gems on a fucking melee build on a melee weapon is the exact same thing. Like fizz damage is legitimately the same. Look, just make it what do you mean make it craftable, bro? What do you mean make it craftable? It's literally like having fizz damage on a weapon, bro. You're trying to like percent fizz on a weapon. If it doesn't have percent fizz, it's a dead weapon. It's a dead weapon.
Ends up being that case where if you do not have the +2 on your focus, that focus is a bad focus. If you do not have plus levels on your wand, that wand is a bad power to a singular affix. As for another follow-up to that, it's gem level mana scaling. You'll notice as you scale gem levels, the mana scaling goes exponential with it. Like, it just keeps getting multiplied and multiplied.
I agree with this. This feels awful. It doesn't feel good. Like, I felt punished. I legitimately felt punished for getting plus gems. I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to be doing like fucking 37% more damage or whatever. Badass. I'm pogging out. And then I went into the map and I was like, I need mana. I have no mana. I've got no mana. No mana. And it was just triggering the fuck out of me. And it made me take the fucking thing off that was giving me gem levels because of the fact that it bricked my mana so hard.
Higher and higher.
There was no mana gem available.
It forces spellcasters into basically Archmage level mana investment. It is just ridiculous how expensive spells get. And just frankly, any ability with gem levels, they get ridiculously expensive. And it ends up making melee abilities like a suicide button. For example, you have Hammer of the Gods and you end up having 2k plus, 3k plus, 4k plus life cost on this one click. You want to do it because it's so much damage and you have to do it. It's mandatory to kill the boss. But it's weird to have so much cost that things like just a regular attack or a skill ends up having the downside of what would have been.
I feel like this is just a balancing issue, though. I feel like this is just a balancing issue. I'll be real. I think it's just a balancing issue. I don't think this is a fundamental problem. It's an annoying thing that there's like a bunch of annoying things. This is a good annoying thing, and I feel like they're just going to rebalance the mana costs of these things. That's it.
Like Corrupting Fever in PoE 1, or like clicking Val Righteous Fire in PoE 1. Something where that's like part of the downside of the skill that's built in and you understand that portion of it, versus just every single skill. You want the gem levels because it's just mandatory for damage, but then it also forces this ridiculous mana problem that just doesn't feel good, in my opinion. Next up, we have everybody getting 9 6 links, or the fact that you can have 6 links wherever you want, and you have so many sockets and all this stuff. My main issue with this is I think it ends up being where you don't have an opportunity cost in your skill choice, and I feel like this limits build diversity. This is probably one of my most controversial takes I'll have in this video, where people might
controversial. This is the same thing I described. It's kind of like that you have a skill set, and every character has an overlapping skill set, so it makes a character feel less unique than the previous character you played. Because, well, you're stupid if you don't run Hammer of the Gods, right? You're dumb if you're not. Like, you're playing a mace build. Like, it doesn't matter if you're playing Molten Blast. If you're not using Hammer of the Gods in your links, well, then you're just dumb. So then it's like, well, now your previous build had Hammer of the Gods as well. And you also were using the fucking... and there's one of those things where it makes builds feel a lot more samey, even though it's a new character and you're scaling it differently. Everything is different, but there's obvious things that you're just dumb for not using, because it's kind of like, it's just free damage sitting there, and you know. So that it makes it feel more like a... I don't know, you're playing a different class than a different specific character. Whereas before, your entire character was a skill. And I actually complained about this in PoE 1. I was forced into using Plague Bearer for every single poison build I ever played. Because I'm an idiot, right? It's basically like a PoE 2. It's free fucking damage with no investment. And if you don't use it, you're dumb. So then I'm forced into using this ability that I actively dislike because it's mandatory, like it's so strong to, that you've just got to use it, which is kind of like, you're in PoE 2, well, guess what? You Hammer of the Gods, you're playing a base build. even if you're not playing a Hammer of the Gods build or a build that does it, it's still worth putting that on your bar with some links because it just does so much damage when you press it. And that's the case for multiple other abilities. So then all your builds kind of feel similar. And I will agree that it is an issue with PoE 2. And I feel like the solve for this, right? There's a solve for this. Is just giving us fuck tons of options. Right? Just give us fuck tons of options. If they add in a million different abilities and a million different buff skills that all have opportunity costs and all have side grades and there's like benefits to this and downsides to that, and then you can actually just build an entirely different configuration per character, and you won't feel forced into using it. Like it'd be like, oh, this is an in PoE 1 example with Plaguebearer. The way that would fix it is by adding in 5 different other versions of Plaguebearer that you can only use one of them, and you've got to pick the flavor of Plaguebearer that you like, for example. Which I feel like they can do by adding in a million support gems and by adding in a million more abilities, which I think that's the plan, right? That is the plan.
I necessarily agree with this, but hear me out. When you have a character, like say, I want to play a Mace Strike build. Just say Mace Strike, for example. I have that skill, and I'm going to use it while I'm clearing, whatever, yada yada. The second I get to a boss, I have to include a second skill called Hammer of the Gods. And it doesn't matter if I'm a Mace Strike build. It doesn't matter if I'm a Molten Blast build. It doesn't matter if I'm using Rolling Slam. For example, you probably wouldn't use a lot of these abilities.
Where are we?
But when it comes down to it, no matter what Mace skill you're clicking, you're including Hammer of the Gods.
True.
And in my opinion,
true.
That's not
I spaced out. I was just permanenting some bows over my chat. True. Big true. Big true.
That you're going to auto-include these because it doesn't really feel like there's a lot of build diversity in maces, because no matter what, you're going to end up clicking Hammer of the Gods because you have no opportunity cost of your 6-link. What I'm saying is in PoE 1, you had to have one skill that was 6-linked, and then if you're getting extra skills that had multi-links, you had to do something extra for it. There was some extra cost, some extra thought that had to go into it. In PoE 2, it's basically just, okay, I'm playing this build, and then when I get to a boss, I want to do single target, I'm just going to click the best skill within my given archetype to do single target, and that ends up making a lot of builds all look the same. The examples I have are casters that are self-cast are going to include Frostwall in their single target setups. Casters that are trigger are going to have Comet or Lightning Conduit in their trigger setups. Staff builds are going to include the Bell.
The Bell is legitimately Plaguebearer, bro. Straight up. That's what the Bell is. Fucking same with Hammer of the Gods. Yeah, they're my 2 main examples. Again, though, totally fixable with more abilities, and on top of that, a part of this reason why it's even affecting him even more because he's a trade league cuck, right? There's a massive cost to getting a 6-link in PoE 1. You can't if you think you're getting like 4 6-links in fucking SSF HC, bro. Good luck with that, little bro. Good luck with that, little bro. Yeah, shit.
Builds are gonna.
But now it doesn't matter. You're still gonna use that. You are still gonna use Hammer of the Gods on any mace build, even if you don't have a 6-link. You're still gonna 4-link it. So, but still, it's one of these things where, he's feeling it even worse because he can 6-link literally anything with ease.
Use Strock versus Browns. Bow builds are gonna use Lightning Rod. Like, there's a lot of these skills where it's just like, if I'm playing this build, like say I'm playing Ice Shot or I'm playing Lightning Arrow, like you have multiple different bow skills, but then both those builds become the same when they get to a boss because both of them are going to use Lightning Rod to get single target. Does that make... Hopefully I'm making some level of sense. I'm not sure what the best solution to this is, but I'm worried going forward that it's going to limit your ability to have build variety because it's just... The correct option is always whatever is the given best skill for single target.
That will always... I mean, that was already the case, technically, for PoE 1 as well. I mean, there was always like, you are going to use a totem. You are going to... No, the thing is, you had far more... I think it was the main reason was characters felt a lot different. You would go X build or Y build or Z build, and you'd build your whole character around that. Whereas now, you just always are going to put a supplementary support ability. It was the same argument why they removed totems from PoE 1. And I feel like while they should have removed Plaguebearer, I do believe that they can fix this, though, by giving us many... I mean, imagine if you had 3 other abilities that competed for the spot of Hammer of the Gods, right? So you didn't need to use Hammer of the Gods, right? I feel like that's the key. Or there's other things, like Bell. They need to have, like, a tag on some of these fucking things. Maybe they need to consume charges. Maybe they need to... I don't know. There's definitely ways of balancing it, right? where they have to compete for their slot, and it can't just be a given always. Now, there will always be a best choice, though, and if you are playing meta-cuck builds, you are going to end up with a lot of the same choices, though. I mean, I don't know.
In your archetype, and every single build that's within this archetype ends up getting shoehorned into that single target skill because you have no opportunity cost. Nothing's stopping you from having the 6-link on this single target skill for when you get to the boss, and that every build plays the same the second you get to a boss, and that feels a little bit bad in my opinion. Think of that what you will, but that's something that I'm not necessarily sure I agree with as a build decision to give, or a design decision to give builds unlimited 6 links with no opportunity cost outside of just the cost of like buying a perfect jewelers or dropping a perfect jewelers. As for things I'm not necessarily sure about, which is things that I don't know if they're good or bad, but specifically I'm thinking about the endgame system. I think it's solid, but it's just weaker in my opinion than PoE 1's Atlas system. And the main reason for that is every time you have to do a layout you don't necessarily like, you're not having fun, and you're forced into that layout you don't want to play a lot of times. And I'm guessing this is something maybe they can just solve by adding a system of being able to block certain layouts or whatever. But the beauty of PoE 1's Atlas system is you could find the map you like and just chain that together and enjoy it. Current PoE 2's endgame system of you don't really have choice what layouts you're running. It just starts to rub you the wrong way. Every time you get the Meyer layout, you're like, oh crap, layout is super mazy. I'm gonna miss a rare in a certain offshoot little area, and I'm gonna have to backtrack for it. And you're like, you start getting salty while you're doing it, or at least I was every time I got the Meyer layout, you know? And that's just like a feels bad situation. I'm not necessarily sure the current endgame system is bad. I think there's some...
Yeah, I get what he's saying. This is autism. He's just got autism. I feel like autism don't like change, right? Makes sense? No, just want to run the same map forever and ever and ever and ever. Just strand. That's the thing that's satisfying to me, speaking as an autist. I vibe with that. But then, you know, it's like, I don't think I necessarily like the overall in-game system entirely. I feel like I would like to see some other experiments with the overall in-game. I don't even know what now what do I want? I don't know. But is this it? I mean, I can tell you now, it pisses me off, bro. I don't even know how to get to the screen. Scrolling through the map, like dragging my mouse around, trying to find where the fuck I'm at, trying to find some shit to click on something. I don't know. I know it pisses me off quite a bit. So, and I know that I enjoyed the progression system of like getting the Atlas points better in PoE 1 of like, oh shit, I'm doing a map that I haven't done before. It gives me a point. I've got to corrupt this one. It felt like the progression just felt better. It felt better in PoE 1. You didn't have that stupid map to drag it around. Now, is this current system good? Yeah, I think it's good. Is it perfect? Hell no. Could it be completely redone in a different way and maybe made better? I think so. I don't know how they need to redo it, but I feel like it needs a redo in some way. Like this shit where you're dragging your mouse around trying to like fucking figure out where you're at and like where you're going and stuff. To me, I'm not a fan. I know I do like the in-game. I like mapping in general though, and I like mods on my maps and I like all that. Like increased difficulty equals increased reward. I like all that. It just the way it's currently implemented. I'm not a huge fan. Now, do I want to just be able to run the same map forever and ever and ever? I don't think that's good for replayability. I get that some people like that, and I for sure get trade blasters just want to do that. But I don't think that's healthy overall for the game. Like I think being able to prefer a certain map and be able to do it more than other maps, for sure. Maybe they could do that. Maybe that could be a thing, right? Where you could spec into like lucky maps, where you can prefer a certain like biome type or something. I don't know.
Pros to it,
or you could like go into an area, into a biome, and kind of keep going and staying in that biome. I don't know. There's definitely some shit that needs to happen in the end game. The current end game isn't it, for sure.
I think there's some things that are good about it, but that I'm also unsure about it at the same time. So anyways, these are basically the top things I have maybe issue with in the current early access. Overall, I like the early access a lot, and I just wanted to point out design decisions I don't necessarily agree with. I'm sure there's going to be people that disagree with me or agree with me based on some of the things I said. Either way, I just wanted to start some discussion about it. After having played a lot of Path of Exile 2, I'm at the point where I am probably done with it until more content gets added, because a large amount of these things, if you noticed, limit what I believe is your ability to have build diversity. And until they give us more archetypes to choose, I don't I don't feel like there's much that I can get excited about making because it just feels like I'm going to be shoehorned into certain things. So I'm currently at the burnt out stage of the PoE2 early access, and I'm doing a hardcore SSF run with Righteous Fire, and I'm going to see if I can go to do Ubers. So full disclosure, that's where I'm at. I'm just waiting for that next content patch, and then I'll probably hop back on and try PoE2
That's Giga Chat. I used to say fucking PoE1, bro.
more. But for right now, that is where it stands for me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching the video. As always, thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care, and peace out. Have a good one.
All right, this is video, guys. This is video. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with at least half what he said. And then I think a lot of stuff, the first half of this video, I think is just like, it's just a time thing, right? It's just time. We just wait, and then crafting gets better, legit. And I feel like the skill thing, I've been complaining about a similar thing, and my logic is that it's going to get better as they add in more alternatives. Providing they add in more alternatives. Right?
From the earth!
And if they don't add in more alternatives, we're fucked.